What's a hot take?
What's a hot take? Give me something.
You can't have a scalding hot take because they won the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I know.
So they were able to salvage, even though they have another game in this series. I would say the hot take before yesterday was you'd been shut out 3 out of 4 games. And as Kat was saying, you're basically trotting out, all due respect, half of a lineup these days, after the 5 spot usually. It's pretty rough. But give the Cardinals credit for scratching out a victory. That's what they've been able to do, at least, in terms of with Milwaukee not pulling away. I do think the Cardinals, they have so many top-end relievers that in any given series, if they can find that one game where they get a lead around the 5th inning, it's really hard to beat them. Because if their starter goes 5-6 and they have a 1-run lead and your bullpen's rested, you can roll out there Helsley for 2, Hicks for 1 or 2. Now that Genesis Cabrera's back, Gio, like they have top-end relievers. They don't have great depth of relievers, but in any given game, if they can get a lead in the 5th or 6th inning, it's really hard to beat that pen when they're rested.
And they had trouble. Like sometimes baseball's like that blanket that's just too small, so you pull it up, your toes are hanging out, you pull it down.
Oh, I don't like the toes hanging out.
So they had problems with their bridge guys getting to the back end guys, and now they found those guys, right? I mean, Thompson, Oviedo, Packy's been pretty good, so now they have decent options.
Hicks
to get Hicks. He's going to be one of their guys at the end too. We saw him in a leverage situation. Hicks, who now embraces being a reliever, he actually said he was watching his video as a starter, and he felt like he was too stiff, and he didn't realize it, but it looked like he was reluctant to go all out on pitches. Now he can be free to blow up the radar gun at 103.8 if he so chooses. So, the bullpen's good. We wonder what's going to happen with T.J. McFarland, who's due to come off the IL at any point. Who goes then? But the other issue outside that is now, all right, the bullpen's good. Early on, it was the starters were good. The bullpen wasn't. They got issues with their starter. And then, of course, offensively, when things in stretches look good, now it's gone in the other direction. And another hot take, because Ben Fred wrote about it, is it time for Yachty to come back from Puerto Rico?
Oh, where is he at?
I would say yes.
Oh, he's probably training
yes.
really hard, I would think. Where's he at?
He's in Puerto Rico.
I know, but why?
The same reason Jack is doing his rehab in L.A. Sometimes if it's going to take a little while, they'll trust guys that are been around to go take care of their business on their own. And there are times too where if an injured player, is around the clubhouse taking up a trainer and let him.
Okay.
There are reasons.
I can see
for
that.
it. But I'm not trying to make excuses. I think Yachty should be back. There's an element of leadership that, especially when you have, like before they brought in Romine, you had Herrera and Kisner. It would have been nice to have Yachty around, especially with Herrera, getting his first taste of the big leagues. But he's doing his thing.
What do you think, Charlie?
Well,
I see the look on your face.
When somebody's injured for a long time, I get it, especially if some of these guys, if you have a specific trainer or doctor or throwing coach in your hometown and you want to go back, get a quick reset, see that guy, maybe get some new information from a third party. I understand that. But also, this is a business, and even if you're hurt, you're getting paid a lot of money by the organization. So to me, it's all about also you're making a lot of money. How else can you help the club even when you're hurt? So I do think Yachty with these young catchers, I know Herrera's down, but Kisner, Yachty is a Hall of Fame Gold Glove catcher. Even Jack Flaherty, I know he's a younger player, but he's a really good pitcher who could also be around. It's another set of eyeballs when you're watching guys in the bullpen throw their sides, when they're watching in the game. I do think it helps the club to be there.
I agree with that. And I think the club should want them to be there to keep an eye on them if they're doing the right thing. You're paying them. So yeah, I know he's got his guy in L.A., Flaherty especially, but it's like, hey, I kind of want to see what our doctors are going to do for you. I want to see where you're at. Every step of the way, I want to see where you're at.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With both those guys, it wouldn't bother me one bit if Yachty went to Puerto Rico for 3-4 days or a week, or if Flaherty went back there, hey, quick change of scenery, see your guy, get a couple training sessions. But then I think it does benefit the organization to be back helping in any way you can.
I get it. Sir Nathaniel, let's say you, buddy.
I think that the Cardinals are remarkably mediocre. I went to the game on Saturday, and I don't know. They're just missing something, and it's exacerbated with Jimmy talking about the bottom half of the lineup not hitting. When Tommy Edman's not going, you got a problem because he's the engine at the top, and if he's not getting on base, then you're basically waiting on a 2 or 3 run home run from one of your big boppers, and if you don't get it, you get shut out because you're getting nothing in that bottom half. It just doesn't turn over. So, it's nice to see Dakota Hudson pitch a little bit better. I don't understand why Edmundo Sosa is still on the team. I really have no idea. He's hitting a $174, and it's July 11th, and that one's perplexing. And, yeah, I think at some point you look at this and you say they got to get O'Neill, his bat, back in there and going.
So
where's the big man?
He's got so he was making his way back from left hamstring issue, got hit by a pitch in a rehab game on the right wrist, and then it swelled up on him. So he wanted to get a check, so they're waiting for the swelling to go down. I think today he said he had his final check with his doctor where they're going to know if he's good to go. Here's my hot take, because I know people don't sometimes appreciate the flair that he brings. I think they miss Harrison Bader so much more than some people will give him credit for it, because he's like the energy guy on the team. Outside, I get Edman at the top of the lineup.
How about Donovan?
But you talk about, well, he's ill too.
I know.
But Bader's been out longer. Donovan's missed a couple of games with this illness. They said he might need a game or two more. But Dylan Carlson has looked really good in center. He's made some great plays. I think they miss Bader because, especially at the bottom of the lineup where you had all these guys, like he was having a decent year. And you're talking about bottom of the lineup guy who can steal bases, who's really good defensively. And I think they miss him. And he won't put a timetable on when he's back. He's dealing with plantar fasciitis.
So what is the timetable on that usually, though? Is that like a sprained ankle? Is that could be anything?
Plantar fasciitis, like Pujols dealt with this for a long time. But sometimes you try to deal with the pain. But in this case, Bader said it affected everything he was doing. So they wanted to try to deal with it now as best they could, meaning, Russ, you could have surgery that's going to put you out for the year where they cut this stuff off your bones.
Is it like a big
it's
a wart-looking thing?
I think it's a calcium something. I don't know, but apparently I know people that had it. It's like someone stabbing you in the foot. So Bader said could be a couple games before the All-Star game, could be a couple games after. I don't know, but I'm doing everything I can to get this thing. I know he's doing some baseball activities, got arrested, stay off it to a certain extent. But he wants to come back. But I think they miss him. I think they miss that energy.
Man, he might have to deal with that all year long and have to sit out long time to get that thing right.
He's been out.
Yeah, I know, man, but it's weird because you're walking everywhere. It's hard to lay off of it and heal it. Go ahead, Charlie. What are you gonna say, buddy?
Well, here's my other issue. Now, the other day they beat the Braves. They didn't really beat Spencer Strider, but they were able to score some runs on the bullpen after he dominated. It really didn't surprise me that much that the Cardinals won the game yesterday, because that was your one game when you looked at the schedule. That was basically a bullpen start for the Phillies, and you could play some matchups. You get Albert, great matchup versus a lefty. So I think more big picture, when you look at the last week or so, when they're playing really good teams, and they're going to face the Dodgers after this, okay, they got to the bullpen in the Strider game. They won a bullpen game that the Phillies threw out there yesterday. Other than that, you're facing some really good pitching. So I don't think the Cardinals are supposed to go 7-1 when they face a bunch of ace-type pitchers, but they're getting absolutely dominated. When they face guys like Zach Wheeler, you can go back, Max Fried. Kyle Wright didn't have a great game, but he's a good pitcher. Even Kyle Gibson, I know he had the home runs last time, but Kyle Gibson's a good pitcher. So tonight you face Aaron Nola.
Looked like Bob Gibson against us.
Right. I just think the Cardinals are going up against a stretch of really good pitching, and when they're facing those guys, for the most part, they don't look like a team that's even with those guys that are going to go in and win a playoff series.
They look a little
They're
off.
going to take 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 7 from one of these teams in the postseason. Absolutely. Can they win 1 out of 3? Can they get one of those games when their bullpen is rested and it's set up nice for them? But, I mean, when you watch these games, do you have confidence that the Cardinals are going to beat these teams in a playoff series?
Not really.
I do not at the moment.
Absolutely. No.
Yeah.
I do think. Look, I was going to tweet this, but then I don't need it. But they're better than this. I think they're better than this. I agree. They've looked mediocre. They have. They're dealing with injuries. No one feels sorry for you. I get it. Every team deals with injuries. But the complexion of this lineup, especially as they try to rest guys, because they've been through a grinder of a schedule. So they're trying to play the long game and make sure guys are off their feet or they're resting Goldie. But when they're healthy and if they can get another arm, I think it's a different thing. I think they are comparable, the two other teams that you think will make a deep playoff run. Maybe other teams are a tick better, but, I mean, right now, this is not the Cardinals that they were when they started the season, and I think that's fair to point that out.
Yeah, I think clearly you're missing 40% of your starting rotation. These are all fair points to make. You're missing 2/3 of your outfield, 2 of which are Gold Glove type guys. I think, though, unless Flaherty's back and actually pitching like a 1 or 2, I do think in a playoff series, if you line these teams up from a starting pitching standpoint, I don't think, even though Michaelis is very good, Waino's very good, Dakota Hudson's a little more inconsistent, but if Flaherty is not back as a 1-2, I think when you face these teams in the playoffs, you're not going to have the advantage from the starting pitching standpoint.
Yeah, I do think they got to go out and get somebody. I mean, I think they need front of the rotation type guy, not a back end, even middle of the rotation. Because I do think, I mean, we've seen Dakota be very good, and you got to remember he's coming off Tommy John, and guys kind of always have ups and downs when they come back from that. I think he can be really good if you have him pitching well, and you have Miles and you have Waino, and then they go out and get a frontline pitcher. That rotation will be fine.
What do you guys
For the
all
playoffs,
think?
though?
Yeah.
I mean, Dakota Hudson is a solid pitcher. I think, though, if Dakota Hudson is one of your playoff starters, I don't think you feel fantastic about that. I think he's definitely a solid pitcher. But if he's matching up against an Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler situation, or a Max Fried, Strider,
good God.
Kyle
Strider
Gibson,
scares me.
whoever.
Sure, heat. But I mean, I think it depends which direction Dakota heads now. He's coming off a good start where he made his adjustments. Slider's good, so they're not sitting on the sinker. If he can go in the right direction and be, like we've seen good Dakota be that guy, you'd feel better about it. But I understand what you're saying.
Let's hear what you guys have to say. Get him in. And by the way, I forgot to pick the winner Friday. And we all know last week it was Sanderson. He's down in Florida right now looking at pineapples on front porches. Curious to what that means. I'll explain in a second. I'll get to your text, by the way. Get him in. 855-282-8255. Gio chimes in. I still say they need to trade for an innings eater, starter, possibly 2. But in the scope of things, we're almost at the halfway mark, so maybe the Cardinals can go on a run. But in my opinion, not if they don't make a move or 2 to put them in a better position to win or at least compete. It all starts and ends with your starting pitching, Big Gio and O'Fallon. Great set of hair on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, starting pitching, I've been told, is a big part of baseball, and I agree with that.
Mitchie chimes in and goes, Jeff Albert needs to go. Last year's team only took off when Schilt told the guys not implement his approach. Did I screw that up? No.
Good performance by Carpenter last night.
I
That was an awesome game.
I picked him up for fantasy. He's basically hitting a home run about every night.
But the Yankees and Red Sox last night, that was an awesome game.
I mean, he's
he's
got a piece of Yankee history, like of all time, 10 homers in 26 games. Like he's in there, with some of the. Well, Kevin Moss is in there, so he's not a big
Kevin
Yankee
Moss.
Man. Kevin Moss. But I remember
what a name.
Flash in the pan.
He was quite a prospect.
He was a prospect until they figured out he's got a giant hole in his swing on the upper inside, and he can't lay off that pitch, and they ended up not being able to hit anymore.
That was back in remember Phil Plantier for the Red Sox and Kevin Moss? They were supposed to be the next big thing.
No, I don't remember that.
I do think, by the way, so last year on the show, we talked about Jeff Albert all the time.
Yep.
I thought it would have been fair if they moved on from Jeff Albert middle of the season last year. It is what it is at this point. However, I don't think it's fair when you look at the lineups they're rolling out there. As Jim said, you have 4 to 5 guys hitting below 200. you have guys who on a good stacked team, playoff team, are more likely in AAA.
Yeah.
So I can't blame Jeff Albert for that. But you can say, look, you can take some of these guys that are hitting $180. I mean, can you make them serviceable? Can you get them up to 230 with a little bit of production? I mean, you can't have automatic outs.
No.
You essentially have you have almost 2 free innings, right? If you have no depth past the 5 spot, a pitcher can basically face the last 4 guys, and then they can kind of selectively pitch around folks, and you almost have 2 free innings for a pitcher.
Yeah, I get you.
And you look at, like, when they faced Atlanta. Philly's a different operation. But look at when they faced Atlanta. Even after you got past the middle of the order, there were guys at the bottom of the order that could hurt you. And as a pitcher, as you say, there's no free innings, so that means you're stressed the whole time. That's what you want as a batting order. And I think the Cardinals had more of that when they had O'Neill. You put O'Neill in the middle of the order, that means guys move down. You have a healthy Bader at the end of the order. And, obviously they need Tommy at the top to get back on track, which I think he will. It can be more of that lineup.
Here's where I think if the Cardinals get a starter, it actually sets up well, I think, for John Mozeliak and the Cardinals to be aggressive in getting a frontline starter and not a rental. And I say that because John Mozeliak, you can criticize him all you want, but he's a smart guy. He's also looking at this year, but 2-3 years out. Jack Flaherty. Do you really think Jack Flaherty is going to be here beyond 2023? I would say no. Adam Wainwright. He's killing father time every year. But still, I think there's a pretty good chance that next year is his last season. So if you're John Mozeliak, you're also looking at 2023 and moving forward. Who is your ace? Who's your 1 or 2, not just this year, but for 2024? And I say that because if you can get a starter, I know it's a big ask. You have to give up a lot. But if you can get a starter with 2.5 years of control, the Cardinals also need that guy moving forward. So it makes sense to trade maybe some long-term, maybe a position player,
like
maybe a good pitcher who's at AA to get an MLB frontline starter that you need for the next 2.5 years.
Who would you part with? Because here's the thing. I think if you're John Mozeliak, look, you got Arenado and you got Goldschmidt at corners. Like, you got premier players who are also affordable. You've done it at an affordable price, okay? So you've had a good resume overall, yeah? Every GM, every president of baseball ops has mistakes because if you're making moves, not all of them are going to work out. I mean, even the good ones, the well-thought-of executives, have had bad ones on their resume. So, but if right now you're flush with a lot of young talent, non-pitching talent, but you've had other guys that have gone on and become very good players, are you a little gun-shy to part with those guys? And which guys would you part with?
Well, I would say
play the role of Mo. All of a sudden, Mo is Marlowe.
Yeah.
I think
put the
some
bow
of this,
tie on for
some of this though, and we all do this. We do revisionist history where, let's say they could have got Zach Wheeler a couple years ago from the Mets when the ask was a Harrison Bader or a Tyler O'Neill plus. Well, last year when Tyler O'Neill finished 8th in the MVP, we all said, well, man, we're really glad they didn't trade Tyler O'Neill.
Smart move keeping him.
Right?
Yeah.
But now you're saying, man, Tyler O'Neill has fallen off and he's banged up. Harrison Bader, banged up, not having a great offensive season. Now you're saying, man, well, you dial it back and say, if they could have traded for Zach Wheeler and actually extended him, that would have been a great deal. So I get, like, it's not a perfect scenario. John Mozeliak has to make calls in the moment. You don't have 2 or 3 years of data after the fact. But I'm just saying, like, you tell me in the Cardinals organization, who's the next ace? For the last 10, 15 years that I've been in St. Louis, that next ace was always ready to go. Whether it was Waka, I mean, even a guy like Lance Lynn turned into an ace, but you had Jack Flaherty. So, I mean, who's the Cardinals'
But I'm saying,
best prospect? Is it Michael McGreevy? Now, Michael McGreevy, I think he could be a Dakota Hudson. He could be a 3-4 starter, but I don't think they have that ace waiting in the wings that's 1 or 2 years away from being a guy that you start in a playoff series.
So who would you part with? Like, who would? I'm not, because I agree with you.
I would not part with Walker. I would not part with Mason Wynn. I would part with McGreevy. I would part with Juan Yepez, even though I don't love that.
Gorman.
And I only say that because Juan Yepez defensively doesn't have a position. Nolan Gorman has impressed me at second base. I would not
He screwed
part
up last
with
night a little
Nolan
bit.
Gorman. I'm
Yeah,
just
he had
saying,
an error.
big picture though. He
Yeah.
makes a lot of athletic plays at
He
second
looks
base.
like an athlete,
I
man.
agree
That
with
guy.
So
Can I ask a question? though?
Would you part with him? If that
I don't
was
think
the
you
ask?
have to. I think if you packaged McGreevy, who's still a first-round pick, and he's at Double-A. Yepez is hitting. I mean, if you package those two with another, I mean, could it be Burleson? I feel like a lot of teams would want Burleson. You don't give up Walker. And by the way, it's really hard to find a shortstop. Mason Wynn is a major league shortstop. But you have some other guys. Like you could package 2 to 3 guys, I would think, in your top 10 of prospects. That's a decent package.
Why are we writing off Jack Flaherty to leave here? Why would he want to leave this organization? Is it because he's going to get way more money? Why would he want to leave this? Is it going to be greener on the other side? Why are we writing him off? Like, how can you not like this organization? Where are you going to go? You going to go to Dodgers? Like, what?
I just see Jack Flaherty. Now, he has to get healthy. He has to be productive. I just see him as a guy who hits free agency. And all he needs is one good year. Even if Jack Flaherty is banged up this year, if he comes back and makes 30 starts next year with a 2.8 ERA, the man's going to get an enormous contract.
Yeah, and he's a businessman. So
Yeah.
everyone talks about, the Cardinals need pitching. Media, you know what I do? I try to address the situation on my own because I'm a regional cable journalist, and I do whatever I can to improve the Cardinals as a rights holder. So I'm going to
As you
read
should.
you what I texted Lance Lynn. I texted him, and he usually texts back if I say, hey, how's the weather? He'll text back. This got no response from him at all. He did not respond, but I texted him, the Cards need a starter. I want you back. Make it happen.
And he's like, he didn't get back to you?
No, because
He will.
Because I think the White Sox are still in contention, and I think he probably likes pitching there. And the Cardinals are going to have to pony up some money for the rest of this year and next year, a lot of money.
They're going to have to do
So
something.
it probably won't happen. But I think, and I actually pitched this to someone, and I was like, not only is he going to give you innings, okay, but he's going to come with a chip on his shoulder. He's going to be fired
Damn
up,
right.
and he's going to win games. And they're like, wait, so you're telling me we need to get a starter who's going to come here and win games? You're a genius.
Hey, Kitty Cat,
They made fun of me.
what celebration is planned for the return of Carpenter to Busch Stadium when the Yankees come here next month? Can we get some T-shirts made real quick? The pet line of Roberto Duran. I read that pretty good, didn't I?
Nice work.
T-shirts made. Matt Carpenter.
Salsa.
He's doing great.
Good for him, though. I'm
Yeah,
happy
dude.
for him.
He's
I
a
am
good guy.
too.
He's a good guy. He's always nice. When I met him, tournament or charities and stuff.
I do
really
like
nice
the
guy.
fact that-
great hair.
That everyone's like, look at Carpenter. It's Jeff Albert's fault he didn't hit. No one really thought it was the hitting coach's fault. I mean, please. I mean, and then all the people that are like, we shouldn't have dumped Carpenter are the same people that killed the Cardinals and him night in and night out on social
I
media.
get
I'm
you.
happy for him. Look, I didn't. He went through a long stretch. I mean, a long stretch. Like he had lost it.
Yeah.
So he took a minor league deal in Texas. He was okay in the minors. I don't think anyone would have foresaw what he's doing with the Yankees coming except for Matt Carpenter. And he got another opportunity. He's made the most of it. I'm happy for him.
Let's see here. Somebody chimed in about Guy Jobu. What up, buddy? Guys, if this season continues to go south, could you see a scenario where Arenado opts out after this season?
No.
All right. Because that would suck.
I mean, look, I've talked to the guy enough. He does really like it here. I know that's rights holder, balloon party talk and all that. It's true. He likes it here. Goldie likes it here. They're buddies. Are they happy that they're not winning? No. But they think they can win. They do.
Okay.
I think
get
they'd
you.
like to see some improvements made.
So can I throw this out there, though? Because I've always been in the camp that Nolan Arenado is not going to opt out. But then when I look at his contract, even though, so after this year, he's got 5 years left, making 35, 35, 32, 27, 15. So quick math, that's 129. That's 144 million over 5 years. I just wonder, like if I was him, I would opt out. And I'm saying that because what did Bryce Harper get paid until? Wasn't it until he's about 40? Am I wrong on that? Like if you're Nolan Arenado, couldn't you get someone? Now the AAV is going to be lower, but couldn't you get someone to pay till your age 39? Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, maybe. But I think when you're reaching that kind of money, I don't know if that necessarily matters. And I would think at this point, comfort for he and his family and ease of, doing what he wants to do professionally, that factors in. And I get the sense he's pretty comfortable here.
Okay, so here's Bryce Harper is paid till he's 38, making 23.5 his last 3 years. I would do it, though, even to get another year from the Cardinals. That's what I'm saying. If Nolan Arenado is totally fine with being a Cardinal, I still would think he would have leverage to get another year or two.
Charlie, come on. Stop bitching about hold on. Charlie, come on. Stop bitching about the Cardinals lineup. You could have the Brewers lineup with two guys heading over 250.
First of all, Brewers hit a ton of home runs. The other thing is the Brewers starting pitching, when healthy, is elite. And they also have elite bullpen arms. So they have two of the three components.
Here's what I like about the Cardinals, and it's rights holder talk. But, okay, when they're healthy, they're going to play better defense than other teams. They are. They're going to they're better base runners than most teams. Like all the mistakes I see teams making, and the Cardinals making now a little bit too, based on them not having their all their guys out there. I think that plays a big part. That you almost lose that when you're looking at matchups. They're really good defensively when they're healthy. They're really good on the bases when they're healthy, and they just need to shore up some of the areas. Obviously, starting pitching is a huge part of it. They got to address that.
Can the Cardinals put Jeff Albert on the IL for the remainder of the season and see if the bats come alive? He may be Mo's guy, but something just isn't working. He must stay. If he must stay, put Albert on the FO and someone else in the dugout. Cat interviewed Donnie a couple weeks ago, and he said hitting staff was adjusting his swing. I cringed and thought, here we go. Sure enough, he hasn't hit a worth a lick lately. Albert must go. Bring on Matty Ho or Jimmy Ballgame Edmonds, please. I could have tied that better with a bow at the end.
Who did they say it was?
Matty Ho?
Matty Ho.
No, not Matt Ho. Who did they say that I interviewed someone? And
Donnie. Who Donnie? Man, I don't know.
Donnie Baseball?
Donnie?
Oh, Donovan.
Oh, Donovan.
Okay. I never know what we call him.
Hey, by the way, whoever the texters just said about the Milwaukee Brewers, the Milwaukee Brewers are fourth in the National League in OPS. Okay, the Cardinals are tied for eighth. So OPS, which is a pretty comprehensive stat, the Brewers are better than the Cardinals.
I agree.
But the Cardinals offense was trending pretty well until they've had all these injuries. You also, look, I said last year, Jeff Albert hadn't, I think, impressed anyone that much over 2.5 seasons, one of which was COVID.
Yeah.
But right now, I do think you're looking at a lineup where half the guys, like if this was a Dodgers, that bottom half would be in AAA.
Yeah.
And the thing with a hitting coach, they get too much credit when things are going good, too much blame when things are going bad. But also, they're the first, it's the easiest button to push if things aren't going well. And the Cardinals haven't done that. Like, hitting coaches have been sacrificial lambs, over the years, many, many times. That right? I mean, team's not hitting, you fire the hitting coach. Is it their fault? Probably not. Hey, the team's hitting great. Because of the hitting coach?
Yes.
Maybe not.
What is funny about that, I was thinking about that this weekend because we selectively blame, sometimes we blame the front office for things, sometimes we blame the manager, sometimes we blame the hitting coach. For example, nobody really blames Mike Maddox for anything. And I'm not saying we necessarily should, but for the pitching issues this year, we're blaming the front office. But for the hitting issues, we seem to be blaming Jeff Albert. And I don't even know what's correct.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we selectively blame folks for different things.
Because hitting coaches, I just think it's an easier thing. What are you going to say? Mike Maddox don't know how to keep those starters healthy.
Yeah.
The claw.
What are you supposed to say? I think it's easier to blame the hitting coach. That guy went 0 for 5. It's Albert's fault.
Guys, the Cards ruined Carpenter. He was a doubles machine. Then they needed the power hitter. They asked him to change his swing, and he did, and got himself into bad habits that took a long time to get out of.
You sure the Cardinals asked him to do that?
No,
or did he
didn't.
hit 36 bombs and said, hey,
He was a leadoff hitter.
Getting paid.
They didn't go to him and say, hey, you're a leadoff guy and you have a very good on-base percentage. What we'd like to see you do is become more homer-centric, and we'd like to see that that leadoff homer-centric. Okay. We'd like to see that on-base percentage for our leadoff guy drop by about 100 points. Yeah. I don't think they asked him. I think he did kind of fall in love with not only the homers but the doubles. He became a power guy, where he was kind of just hunting a certain pitch, and it worked for him in the short term. But the Matt Carpenter that used to take the ball all over the field kind of went away.
How about this? Can you now look at the Matt Carpenter extension and say it was a good extension because in theory he could have been good because now he's good. So in some other realm, he could have been good.
He would have if not for Jeff Albert.
Jeff Albert screws everything
Jeff
up.
Albert, what I saw happening was Matt Carpenter was taking BP. Jeff Albert walked in and just totally bent his arm
That's what he did.
in a different way.
Yep.
And after that, the man couldn't hit anymore.
I know. I saw that too.
I do feel good for Matt because Matt's like, I can still play. And the world was like, no, you can't. No, I think I can still hit. No, you can't. And you know what? He's right.
Yep. You're absolutely,
I like that.
Yeah, he took a beating, dude.
Yep.
And he sees that. I don't give a damn if you're on Twitter. He's on Instagram and he sees it. You can't hide from it.
He took a beating making 18 schmil a year.
I know. No, I know.
So how do you look at this? So I think sometimes like we do forget that these guys are people and they have egos and they have pride and they have feelings like everyone else. So like if you're a guy making $18 million, all of a sudden Charlie Marlowe, you're an $18 million a year middle infielder.
Nice.
But
Could have been.
you sign a contract and then you're not hitting. Now part of you is like, I got a house in Malibu. I like that. But right, you're going to wear that every day, aren't you?
I am. And again, it gets back
There's
to
worse
our
tragedies.
Yeah.
correct. It gets
People
back,
need to be more like me.
Thank you. It gets back to our discussion all through the 2.5 years that Matt Carpenter was struggling. I always put it like this. Of course, if you're a competitor, doesn't matter how much money you're making when you're hitting $180, it bothers you. You're depressed about it. You're grinding. You're pressing. However, Matt Carpenter had unbelievable years for the first 3-4 seasons, making about $500K a year when he was about a $25 million player. So I don't think Matt Carpenter feels bad when he was severely underpaid as a young player, that he was severely overpaid as an aging player. And if you look at what he actually made over the course of his Cardinals career, I bet you it was pretty fair if you were to look at in terms of WAR of what his value was.
Yeah. Even itself out.
But to me, that's not the point. The point is he's a prideful guy, and he lost it, and everyone said, you're done. And he's like, I don't think I am.
Yeah.
You know, like he's going to the ballpark. He's Matt Carpenter. He's got a resume, and he's a 160 hitter or whatever he was hitting. And that's day after day after day, where I know you supposedly have to compartmentalize things, but you're human. That can't be easy. And again, there's people that are struggling to eat. I get that because people always. I'm not trying to qualify it as something else.
No, I know.
But it is, a human situation where a guy, every day has to be reminded. Pinch hits or gets a start and you're hitting 160.
In his
and
own
it's
bubble,
right up
he
there
was
on the
taking a beating.
scoreboard.
In his own little world, he was taking a beating.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Albert was charged with changing the organization philosophy from top to bottom. Look at the hitting success in the minors. His system is working.
I think that's fair. Look, I said last year, I don't think Jeff Albert impressed at the big league level for the first 2.5 years, which is why there was an outcry or some media talk about potentially moving on from Jeff Albert. But if you're looking at him to grow the organization's hitting philosophy, aren't you pretty damn happy with Brendan Donovan? I know he fell off a little bit, but Nolan Gorman, Juan Yepez, and oh, by the way, every team in baseball would love Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn. And how about Burleson? So you have some elite position players that are already in the big leagues or in AA, AAA, and I do think you have to give Jeff Albert some credit for that.
And in the second half of last season, their offense was a juggernaut. So all of a sudden it worked and then it doesn't. Like, I just don't know how much you hang on the batting coach. It's easy.
It's an easy thing to
It's an
bitch
easy
about.
thing to point to him. I get it. And it's an easy thing to whack the hitting coach. Sometimes they're just recyclable guys, I don't know.
Yeah. Sanderson chimes in. By the way, Sanderson, he's down in Florida. I got a gift card for you, partner, because you won last week. You won last week. You had a rough go last weekend. You were a little too confident that there's going to be girls out the wazoo. It just didn't happen. But now you're down in Florida. You're toe dragging. You're skating around with your Orboys with no shirt on. He says Arenado loves playing in front of the fans in St. Louis. He wants that red jacket. The money is irrelevant to him. That's our boy Sanderson. Money's not irrelevant to anybody, just so you know.
Then give it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, okay?
No, but he's got plenty.
He's got plenty, but
once you make and part of it is pride. You know, like with Albert, Albert Pujols, leaving, they offered him a 5-year deal. He was like insulted by that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was going to the Angels because they put a little extra something on. It was pride. He wanted to be paid like the best hitter in baseball. Part of it was pride. But I think once you've gotten a fat contract, I'm not so sure. And you have more money than you'll ever need and your family will need. I think where you're playing and the happiness level.
Well, you want to compare to other big boys too, Beck. No,
right.
I'm better than him.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
Yeah.
And here's the other part of this. You're not on, now he's on the Yankees, but in the last couple of years, you weren't on the Yankees in the sense where you could have a $20 million bad contract. The Cardinals can't really do that.
Yeah.
The Cardinals, for a couple years there, had some dead weight. They had the Matt Carpenter deal. They had the Dexter Fowler deal for a while. And
Cecil.
Yeah, that was a little before. But also, what was that, 7? I'm just saying, for those couple years that probably overlapped, I'm doing the math in my head. Those couple years that overlapped, if you had about $34 million devoted to a Dexter Fowler and a Matt Carpenter, and they weren't even starting,
Lord.
The Cardinals, they can't spend, or they're not going to spend over $200 million. So if 18% of your payroll is dead weight, it's really hard for the Cardinals to win a World Series that year.
I get you. Guys, it's not the hitting coach. It's a competition. Look at how awesome this team looks when they play against the Central. And look at how terrible they look when they play against good teams. 3.85. That was a 3.85. So you're saying that they're not competing against the bad. Well, they got to figure that out then. I mean, that's
like, I don't even think the Phillies are a really good team.
Yeah.
They're not an upper. They're a decent team. They're not upper echelon. I think the Braves, that's a scary lineup, even when they're missing key pieces. To me, like, that's where you saw a bigger difference. To me, that was stark. But again, the Cardinals didn't have their full complement of players. I think it's a different situation. Like, I really believe in their outfielders. Okay, I think if they were all healthy, we'd see different. Like, I like the outfield when they're all healthy and they're all in there. And yesterday, Dylan Carlson had a bad knee and ended up coming off the bench to pinch run.
great play.
Yeah, I mean,
Great slide.
So
He kind of went. Oh, he kind of faked it, went around, and kind of slid his arm in, something like that. Like, it was very athletic.
it was pretty clear that he was safe. I don't know why.
I know. That kind of ruined the emotional part. Okay, a couple other things, and we are going to go to break, by the way. Good little Cardinals segment there, everybody. Good job. Round of applause.
Well done.
Jobu. Guys, why is a 336 hitting Burleson not here over a sub-200 hitting guys like Dickerson and Nate Barr? Jobu.
That's fair.
I mean,
don't you
I don't
think,
know.
Kat, you talked about our guy TJ McFarland coming back. Do you think, because we have the All-Star break coming up here after the next week, isn't this the time if Dickerson, who just came off the IL, and then McFarland the same, if those guys over the next week and a half don't do anything, this feels like the time where it's DFA time for those two?
Well, I feel bad
Potentially.
because Dickerson talked about having a fresh new attitude upon his return.
Keep him.
And I will say McFarland had really good moments last year, and if he's healthy, I mean, he's a double play machine. I agree. You look at him, but they have to make some difficult decisions. I'll agree with you there, because at some point you have a need for a starting pitcher regardless of what happens with Jack, right? I mean, you're getting Matz back. Hopefully he'll be good. You don't really know what the long haul is going to be with Matz. You're hoping for the best. They need a starter, so at some point you're going to have to probably give up an asset here, and you're probably going to have to restructure other pieces in order to make everything work. And part of that's going to be clearing out guys that you don't think can help you.
And I don't think that TJ McFarland would get picked up necessarily by another team, but it's also the sense of, if he doesn't do well in his next 2 outings, it's really hard to look your club in the eye and send down a Packy, an Oviedo, a Thompson. Those guys are helping you win games lately. It's really hard to say we're trying to win when those guys have been your bridge guys the last month or so, and to send down those guys and keep McFarland, who's not getting anybody out.
Well, especially like Oviedo now, who has morphed from starter that couldn't win games to a guy who's been a valuable bridge guy. I think that what they might do with Thompson, like I said, is they might be looking at him as a guy who can be put in the rotation. So they could say, and Ali has kind of talked about the future for Thompson. If they want him to start, they're going to have to send him down to stretch him back out again and let him get some starts there. Or, you could just say to Packy, hey, nice job, but we'll see you next time, which all three of those guys, like you said, I think have earned their place.
Well, you know what? Let the caller call in. We want callers to call in because they could sort everything out, especially our boy Gio. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, guys?
Look at that deep voice. Good Lord.
Hello, ladies.
Hello. It's Gio. What up?
No, man, you guys are talking my language. Cardinals.
Yeah, baby.
I agree with I like Dickerson even early in his career. I think that you probably have to BFA him, unfortunately. Probably the same with Nootbaar, or send him down at least, or if you can. I don't know what his contract entails. Give Burleson a chance. Let the kids play. Give Burleson a chance.
All right, but here's my thing with that, and I get the call for Burleson because he's on fire in the minors. But if you're going to get O'Neill back, and then Bader's not too far away, you're not going to get a lot of at-bats for Burleson, right? Unless one of those guys sits. Yeah. So is it time to break the glass on that? And I think that's what the Cardinals are thinking about, unless, like I said, there's some pieces that are going to go as you try to acquire a starting pitcher, then you're probably going to have to do some shuffling in other places.
What do you think, Gio?
True. I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that.
I can. You know why? No offense, Gio. Here's why I can. What if Alec Burleson's one of your best hitters? And I only say that because at the beginning of the year, nobody would have said, Brendan Donovan has got to be up and playing every day. And I know he's fallen off. But for 2 months, he carried you. And so when he's right.
I love Donovan.
Nolan Gorman, do you want those guys to sit? Right now,
nope.
Hell no.
You want those guys taking ABs. And earlier in the year, in some cases, over Harrison Bader and over Tyler O'Neill. So I don't think you can also write off Burleson like, if he comes up, he's a pinch hitter. What if Burleson's one of your best hitters? He could be.
But how are you going to – you're saying bring him up now and see what he has, and then when those guys come back, they don't play?
Well, what I'm saying is at the beginning of the year, nobody would have said Brendan Donovan has to play.
Yeah, but he can play everywhere. It's a different
Okay, but you have 5 batters. You're rolling out 5 batters basically every night. So if Burleson actually hits to a Juan Yepez level, that man's going to play.
My point is with –
I love but.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gio.
Deep voice.
No, that's what I'm sorry, Jimmy. Sorry, Jimmy.
Everybody apologize. 1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry.
I just look. I get it. But I'm trying to figure out how that works. So O'Neill comes back. Let's say they're not going to rehab him anymore, and he's back. Okay, so he's out there, and he was on fire before he went out with the latest injury. Who knows when the next one's coming? My point though is, if you get him back and Bader back, you want to give those guys a chance to reclaim the form that they've had, which means you're not playing Burleson. And then what's the point of having him up here? Donovan is a guy, anytime anyone on the field needs a day, Donovan gets plugged in there because he can play everywhere. That's not what Burleson is. So I think it's sort of a different equation.
But you also have a DH spot. And look, Tyler O'Neill's hitting 240 this year. I know he's better than that. Harrison Bader wasn't hitting this year. He's below 100 OPS plus. You need offense, is all I'm saying. And look, by the way, the last week or so, watching Dylan Carlson in center,
dang boy,
aren't you pretty okay saying, hey, if that guy's our starting center fielder for the next 2-3 years, you feel good about that? Whereas maybe in the last couple of years,
I think he's not that. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying. I think that opens up some flexibility at the corners.
Last thing for you, Gio. Next time you got to come to El Monstero with me, baby. It was a good old time.
I do. I was actually at my tournament this weekend all weekend.
Oh yeah. Well, you missed a good time. All right, buddy. I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, boys.
See you, dude.
See you, buddy.
Deep voice, Gio. Mo tries to get the most bang for his buck when it would be best to get 1 or 2 literal. Ow, stop it. Literal game changers instead of a collection of maybes.
There are a lot of maybes right now. I liked this lineup at the beginning of the year. Also, another part. Yachty. I know Yachty at age 40 or 39 But even Yachty was hitting 230. That's different than 170.
He's also clutch. I mean,
he's working out.
But so I don't want them to go and get a starter who's comparable to what they can also throw out. I want a game-changing starter. I'm with you on that. I just think look, O'Neill, as I was saying, he got off to a slow start, then he got hurt. He had started to hit again right before he got hurt. I think he's going to hit, and I want to see him get that opportunity. I think Bader provides energy. I think
he does.
He gets on base, and he's stealing bases, even with the planter that was.
Yep.
I like that outfield when they're healthy, and I want to see those guys come back and give them a shot to keep going.